بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين وأفضل الصلاة وأتم التسليم على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. اللهم علمنا ما ينفعنا وانفعنا بما علمتنا وزدنا علما. اللهم لا سهل إلا ما جعلته سهلا وأنت تجعل الحزن إذا شئت سهلا. سبحانك لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله تعالى وبركاته. We welcome all of you to another edition of the Black Imams Roundtable. And since today, I am your sole pilot for the time being. May Allah send me some additional pilots. But if I should remain the whole pilot for this session, alhamdulillah, you will finally understand why it's called the Black Imams Roundtable. Did y'all ever pay attention to that? It's Imam with apostrophe S, so it's singular. The Black Imams Roundtable. I don't know, how many of y'all ever caught that? Because you just say the Black Imams and you think it's like plural, but it's actually singular with an apostrophe S, which means I'm the Black Imam, right? This is my show and I don't need those other guys. No, I'm joking. So welcome to tonight's session. Our beloved Imam Naeem Abdullah was not able to make it tonight. So we're going to tax him when he comes back. There's 2 weeks in a row. We're not going to forget this. And our beloved Imam Faheem, he may be joining us later, but he had some important community affairs that he had to take care of. As being a Black Imam, sometimes you have to engage on the ground, and he's on the ground engaging. So tonight, inshallah, we'll continue with our discussion of fiqh, where the rubber meets the road, because as you recall, we're in a series where we're talking about how to practically acquire and practice the knowledge of the religion. And we started with the primary sciences of Islam in terms of al-aqidah, al-fiqh, and al-tasawwuf. And how does that become something practical? So I need, before we get started, since I'm in the position to do the everything, I'm going to ask you to do several things. Number one, which is extremely important, share this session. So let's get these numbers up. I know we're a little late today, but let's share, everyone share with friends, family, loved ones, so that everyone would benefit. Let's make a sound intention when we share to spread beneficial knowledge. So make your intention, because the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he told us in 2 hadith. Let's benefit quickly. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "Innama al-a'malu bin-niyat wa likulli imri'in ma nawa." The actions are by the intentions, and every person will get what he intended. So intend good. When you share, I intend to spread beneficial knowledge. Make that your intention, share. Share once, twice, 3 times, right? Then the other hadith, the Prophet ﷺ said, الدال على الخير كفاعله. The one who indicates to good gets the reward of the one who does it. So if we, like, this is your chance to be a teacher. This is your chance to give a da'wah. Some of us, we're not feeling so comfortable in actually teaching and calling people to Islam ourselves. So if you make the intention to share, through that sharing, you'll get the reward of everything we do, right? So you can earn your rewards as a teacher, as a caller to Allah Tabarak wa Ta'ala, by sharing. As someone who is assisting their brother or sister in Islam, as the Prophet ﷺ said, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is in the aid of the person, so long as that person is aiding their fellow brother or sister, right? Right. So these are all things from the Prophet ﷺ that we should take advantage of and we could benefit. So please do that sharing. Also, while we're sharing and caring, don't forget, I messed that up. That we've made a commitment to each other that we would support the Black Imams Roundtable, not only with our bodies, but also with our resources. So there are multiple ways in order to support, through Cash App, through Zelle, through PayPal, through our own website. All of those ways facilitate for us to continue the work. And we have a lot of work to do. And I want to say this about that. Listen, I had a meeting today with a very influential person. And we were talking about ways that the Muslim community could cooperate with his community, right? I'm being vague just to be vague, so I don't have to put the individual out, but I can talk in general about the issue. And we were talking about ways that we could cooperate with one another. And we talked about how we could finance these ways. And I mentioned to him that until we get funding in place to do all these initiatives, that I could take a portion of that and do it for free until the financing and the financing piece is there. And I said, the reason that I'm able to say that is because our community supports our efforts. And it facilitates for us to do this work. We are supported to do the work, right? So when there is not the availability of financing, and we're doing a da'wah, and we're working and calling people to Allah and to teaching and educating and benefiting, then we have support to do that. And he was like, wow. I said, yeah, we believe in supporting our own efforts, right? And I said, because we support our own efforts, we don't have to compromise our principles when we speak either. So that's very important, that the round table and the imams that come on the round table, because of your support, they're able to speak freely. As Imam Dawood said, the one who funds you runs you. Since no one is funding us as, for their objectives, then they don't run us. And we're able to speak, as they say, truth to power. So all of that is important to help us continue the work. So your support is vital to our work. So everyone take a moment and use one of these avenues, whether it is MMACINC.org/donate directly to the website, or it's through Cash App at $ Masjid Muhammad AC, or Zelle donations at MMACINC.org, or PayPal, which is PayPal.me/MMACINC, right? All of those, and you put the Roundtable. These are ways, and I'll put it up again, to support the effort. Now, getting to the subject matter, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said a beautiful hadith that many of the scholars of Fiqh, which is Islamic jurisprudence, the rules, the practical rules of the religion, they quote this hadith when they're introducing the subject of al-fiqh. They're up there, my brother. Everything is there. So all you gotta do is click on one of those links. That hadith is that the Prophet ﷺ said, "May yuridillahu al-khayra yufaqihu fi din." Whomever Allah willed good for them, He would give them the understanding of the religion. Yufaqihu fi din. So the more we learn the knowledge of the religion and understand it and are able to convey it, that is a sign for us that Allah wants good for us. And one of my teachers, when he was explaining this hadith to us, he said the opposite holds true too. And I want you to pay attention to this. He said the opposite holds true as well. Among the signs that Allah does not will good for you, and you're not going to have a good ending, is that you don't acquire the understanding of this religion. It is extremely important that we take learning serious. And there are degrees and levels. There are degrees. And every one of us should know our level and the degree of knowledge we need at our level and the influence that we can use to depart that knowledge to those at our level. This is a beautiful thing. Number one, know your level. Number two, know the level, the amount of knowledge and understanding you need at your level, and then realize how to depart that to others. Because everyone, for us to build communities that are knowledgeable, that are strong, that are beneficial, everyone has to play a role in that. So that means everyone has an assignment. And look at it this way when I say everyone has an assignment. Imam al-Haddad, he said something beautiful. Imam Abdullah bin Alawi al-Haddad, he died in the year 1132. He was called Haddadul Qulub, as Sheikh Abdul Karim Yahya mentioned this past weekend at the Darul Rahmah retreat, which I'm going to talk about. He said, when we say Imam al-Haddad was Haddadul Qulub, I'll type it in there. He called him a heartsmith. A heartsmith. That one who does the work of a blacksmith on hearts. Imam al-Haddad is the heartsmith. What did Imam al-Haddad say? And this is related to fiqh fi din, having an understanding of the religion. He said, Man alima mas'alatan wahidatan fahuwa alimun biha. Whoever knows one religious case, mas'alatan wahidatan, one religious case, fahuwa alimun biha. And in that case, that person is a learned individual. Another way you can say a scholar in that. So whatever we learn, we have to become proficient in it because we are learning in that. And then we have the obligation of conveying that. Bellighu anni walau ayah. Convey for me, even if it's one thing, as the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, right? And never underestimate your impact. Oftentimes, a person carries understanding, but they themselves are not knowledgeable. They'll carry it to someone who is more knowledgeable than them, has more understanding than them, but they will get the reward as a carrier, right? They'll get the reward of someone who conveys. So that's a practical thing with every single mas'ala. So you say mas'ala, and then another mas'ala, then another mas'ala. And after a while, you're going to have a bunch of masail. One case, and another case, and another case. After a while, you're going to have a bunch of cases. And in our community, especially the inner cities, and if you want to be more explicit, the African-American communities, there is a desperate need of al-fiqh fi din, the understanding of the religion, both linguistically understanding and technically the actual rules of jurisprudence. So we want to lay out what that looks like, especially in our communities. Because many times we will find ourselves take shahada, say ashhadu an la ilaha illallah, ashhadu anna Muhammadur Rasulullah, be in a community, and years would go by and we actually never in an organized way learned our deen. And one would think from that Islam and its educational system is not organized, and that couldn't be further from the truth. What it is, when the rubber meets the road, there is not in place structured learning that produces a beneficial result. So when we're talking about in all of these things, whether we're talking about al-aqidah or al-fiqh or tasawwuf, and then adding later, when we keep going on, we're going to add more things, right? That needs to be structured. And I want you to look at it this way. Stop thinking just about ourselves. Think about what Islam's looks like in your family, among your friends, in your community, in your city, in your state, ultimately in the country. What will Islam look like from the work I do today, 100 years from now? I want to ask you a question. How many of you actually critically think about that question? I'll repeat it. What will Islam look like in my family, amongst my friends, in my community, in my city, in my state, ultimately in this country, and then you can go further around the world, as a result of what I'm doing right now in my life? How many of you actually think about that? I do all the time. So I can put me as an I. How many of you think like that? I think about it all the time. I don't think I think about anything else as much as I think about that. But what about you? Do you really flip that around in your mind? Give me some answers. Right? All of us, right, should have a portion of this, right? Because if you think about it, you're going to actually one day, inshallah, do something about it along with that. And whatever you're doing, if you keep thinking about it, you're going to be inclined to do more. Right? So for us, that's something that is important. And if it's going to be laid out, then it needs some kind of structure. And when we talk about learning our religious sciences, we don't have to reinvent the wheel. In fact, I want you to think about it. Let's talk about al-fiqh. If we talk about al-fiqh, ilm al-fiqh, the science of fiqh, the rules of the religion, that's a science, a field of study, right? That has, and I want you to put this in your mind, it has its methodology, it has its scholars, its experts, and it has its books, and it has its history. It has its methodology, it has its scholars, it has its books, and it has its history. Right? With all that said, that means there is the structure available that we should employ in our efforts. Trying to reinvent something may be extremely difficult, if not impossible, given our realistic capacity to do that. And emphasize when I said our realistic capacity, because sometimes we may give ourselves more credit than we actually deserve. And we may think of ourselves having more ability than we actually have. And a lot of that is because we may not be adequately informed of what it takes to do the work. Right? So let me give you a hint. If we just talk about al-fiqh, its root in Islamic, al-fiqh, al-Islami, Islamic fiqh, rules, practical rules that we implement in our lives, has its starting point in our sacred law with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and his messenger sallallahu alayhi wasallam. So you can in another way say the Quran and the Sunnah, which was conveyed by the messenger of Allah sallallahu alayhi wasallam to his companions. So the companions of the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam actually practice al-fiqh in a way where the rubber meets the road practically. What did that look like? What was their methodology? Did they have books? Who were their scholars? Right? All of that in the time of the companions needs to be thought about, needs to be studied, needs to be investigated. Likewise, to the followers of the companions, their students. They inherited their fiqh, their understanding, their practice from the companions. And they were real people who had real life circumstances. And they applied that knowledge in those circumstances. That needs to be studied. It's part of the historic record of how we have what we have today. It's something we need to really pay attention to. We cannot ignore it, right? And likewise, the succeeding generation, the followers of the followers, which make up a Salaf, right? They actually practiced fiqh. They actually had rules. They actually had judges. They actually had scholarship. They actually had qualifications and conditions for all of these things. Are we informed about those things and how they actually impact what we have today? And that doesn't stop there, because you have succeeding generations. So at the time of the followers, you're touching the time of the coming of the four Imams. Abu Hanifa from the time of the followers, and the rest of them from the times of the followers, and right in that area, right in those generations. So you're talking about all of them are from the Salaf, from the early Muslim generations. The last one to die is Sayyidina al-Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal, who died in the year 241 after Hijrah. So that's before 300. So he's counted in time among those noble generations. So they actually had a structure. They actually applied the religion and the rules of the religion in a way that we can tangibly examine, right? Very important. Which means you're talking about 1,200 years of living examples of how to apply this religion. Could someone put that up so we can highlight that point? When we're talking about just the four schools, the Hanafi school, the Maliki school, the Shafi'i school, and the Hanbali school, we're talking about a 1,200 years of a practical legacy. 1,200 years, emphasize the word practical legacy of how to acquire understanding of the deen, to practice understanding of the deen, and to convey an understanding of the deen. That's something we should think about. Do you follow that? So we're not talking about, I want to put this in context so it really, really makes sense, right? Whenever you talk about the four Imams, you're not just talking about one person. So when we say the madhab of Abi Hanifa, or the madhab of Imam Malik, or the madhab of Imam Shafi, or the madhab of Imam Ahmed, you're talking about the collective work of the experts in a given time and place that were the elite of the Islamic jurists in those sessions. So when you talk about them, you're also talking about those who were their ashab, who were their companions, who were their students. And when we say students, they were actually companions, and they were in the session, and they contributed to the development of the practical application of the rules of the religion on the grassroots level. That's something to think about. This is actually something that's happening. It's not something that's just in a book that's devoid of practicality. No, these are living people with living situations, with real incidents that occurred, that they responded to, that they addressed. All of that is a part of their fiqh. Now, we're not talking about anybody. We're talking about the experts. So these are the top legal minds in the Islamic world, working on conveying the law, the practical law, from what they received from the greatest minds among the earlier generations up to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Do you understand how significant that is? So in other words, all of that is teamwork from the best of the best in their fields. This is not individual work. It's a team of the greatest legal minds of the time working on conveying what they receive from succeeding generations back to the Prophet ﷺ in a practical manner that's going to be applied in real time, right? And every generation that inherited that whole entire structure and tradition had the same function in their time, which is something we need to really think about. And this is a continuous, unbroken transfer of knowledge, understanding, and practice for 1,200 years in the form of a madhab. Prior to that, you have the methodologies and the rulings, which is actually the madhab of the companions. Because every imam has a chain back to a companion who has it back to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So Imam Abu Hanifa has his chain of narration from teacher to teacher to teacher to Sayyidina Abdullah ibn Mas'ud radiyallahu ta'ala anhu, the companion of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, who learned directly from the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So when you look at the school of Imam Abu Hanifa, what you're looking at is a development and an expansion of the school of Abdullah ibn Mas'ud radiyallahu ta'ala anhu. Those legal judgments that he actually gave and the practices that actually existed, they were eyewitnesses to those who received from those who received from those people. So they actually were living in the development of these legal rulings in real time, rubber meeting the road. Because if you don't think of all this and you don't put all this in your mind, what you're actually thinking is a bunch of books with no reality. No, it's not books. These are real people with real cases. And what you're finding in the books is the structure. But the actual application was from living people. And every generation had to do that, which tells us in our time, we have the same function in relation to what's really happening in our lives. So the need of the best minds, the best scholarly minds who understand our tradition actually need to be engaged in continuing this legacy of knowledge transfer in relation to the real situations we deal with every day in our lives. That's fiqh. And we should see it. We should have a serious understanding of how our religion reached us and why it reached us that way, and what is our responsibility in relation to what we understand. That's something that when I think about, the rubber meeting the road in fiqh, as well as in Aqidah too, but we're talking about fiqh because it's not just theory. All right, I need to take a 7-minute break, and maybe some of you too, because I have to pray. And we don't have no one else to relieve me because I'm on duty by myself tonight. So we're going to take a quick 7-minute break, leave it running. We should be praying. Those who are not praying, in 7 minutes, if you engage yourself with La ilaha illallah or as-salah ala nabi, Allahumma salli ala Sayyidina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam, or istighfar, astaghfirullah al-azim wa atubu ilayh, in 7 minutes, if it ain't your time to pray, you could get a couple hundred salah ala nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam in, or a couple hundred of la ilaha illallah, or a couple hundred of astaghfirullah, or you can get a little portion of all of it. Don't waste 7 minutes or 10 minutes. Let's say 10 minutes. Don't waste it. So some of us are going to go pray, and some of us are going to engage in dhikr, right? And in this way, the session is still live while I take this brief break for prayer. Inshallah, I'm going to take this brief break, and I'll be right back. Barakallahu bikum. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. Inshallah ta'ala, I hope that you made this session a session of dhikr while I was gone. So we mentioned 3 expressions that you could have taken advantage of, and inshallah, I pray that all of you who were not going to pray actually took advantage of it. And let me give you the reward of that. Because we said, La ilaha illallah. The Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam, he said, أفضل ما قلت أنا والنبيون من قبلي لا إله إلا الله. The Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam, he said, the best thing and that I and the prophets before me have said is La ilaha illallah. So when we engage with La ilaha illallah and we make that dhikr, subhanallah, you're saying the best thing that the Prophet ﷺ has ever said. أفضل ما قلت أنا والنبيون من قبلي. The best thing that I and the prophets before me have said, La ilaha illallah. So only an unfortunate, wretched person would miss such great blessings. And then we said, make as-salat wa salam ala Rasulillah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. There is this narration that the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said, أقربكم إلي يوم القيامة أكثركم علي الصلاة. That the one who is going to be the closest to me on the day of judgment is the one who makes the most salutations upon me. Sallallahu ala Sayyidina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. The more you do that, the closer you'll be with the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And to do that, it's going to be giving you to be under the banner of Sayyidina Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said about istighfar, I make seeking the forgiveness and turning to Allah more than 100 times a day. That's the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He found a joy in turning to his Lord, and he was sinless. What about us? Allah, we are filled with shortcomings. So how much istighfar do we need to make? Right? If the Prophet ﷺ, he made 100 times a day, what about you? What about me? He's ma'asum, right? Allah forgave anything that would come from him. He's ma'asum. He doesn't make those mistakes. Not us. So for us, istighfar is important. So I hope, if ever again, and in your daily lives, morning and night, at minimum 100 times. 100 times of La ilaha illallah, 100 times of Salah ala Nabi, 100 times of istighfar, and at night, after like Maghrib, spend some times. You're gaining and you're benefiting and benefiting. So let me remind you, please, again, before we continue, share the session. Make the intention to spread good. Someone who may have missed, they come in, they benefit, you get the reward of that benefit. Share, 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 share. Throughout this session, keep sharing, keep sharing. And with that intention, I'm spreading beneficial knowledge. I'm encouraging people to do good. I'm building the legacy of Ahl Sunnati wal Jama'ah every time you press that button. All of these noble intentions, you'll get the reward. Everyone here just be gaining and gaining and gaining. The whole session's a session of benefit, an exchanging of benefit. MashaAllah. Reminding and being reminded. Yes, it's good. So back to my point. So each and every one of us, we have our portion of this knowledge. And when we're talking about this collective effort to facilitate the acquiring of understanding, the practicing, and the conveying of the rules of the religion is a continuous work. And the structure that it was excellently applied is through al-madhahib. It's through the school. So we say madhab, right? And the plural of that is madhahib, right? Right? Though the madhab, one madhab, madhahib, the plural. So when we say the four madhabs, those four madhabs have been the vehicle by which the prophetic knowledge has been conveyed all the way down to us from generation to generation. Here, I want to highlight something that should be highlighted for us. Don't be a dwarf challenging giants. Don't be a dwarf challenging giants. Whenever we oppose those four madhahib that have been the protected, enlightened fortress of Islam for 1,200 years, we are as dwarfs challenging giants. Don't be like that. You're talking about the best that the Muslim nation had to offer in its legal minds. For any one of us to fool ourselves into thinking that we as individuals could do a better job, we are seriously deluded. Right? So this concept that has crept into our communities that I don't need to follow a madhab is ludicrous when we talk about the rubber meeting the road. We're talking about us as common people, and we're going to try to do the work of 13 generations of the most expert legal minds in Islam at every level, in every place, and we're going to challenge all that and redo it. How does that sound to any of you with common sense? I'm going to repeat that. I don't need to follow a madhab, which means that I'm going to do it myself. In saying that, without me knowing it, the one who's making such a claim, when I say me, the one who's making such a claim, that I'm actually challenging 13 centuries of the greatest legal minds in Islam around the world, and the number of them are in the hundreds of thousands across all four schools. The numbers of those great legal minds from over 13 centuries, that's over 1,200 years, are hundreds of thousands of individuals who are experts in their fields. Now, let's think about that. I mean, actually, from one standpoint, that's just like at a surface level. You're telling me you as an individual, or you're referring, quote unquote, scholars, are going to oppose hundreds of thousands of scholars over 13 centuries who are experts in their field, and you're going to redo all that. From a surface level, I want to ask you honestly, because we haven't real, like rubber meets the road, that means real talk. Does that logically make any sense? What is the probability of that person actually doing that, realistically? I really like engage me in that. What's the possibility of that? Right? Think about that. But that's what we're being told. I follow Quran and Sunnah. And the greatest legal minds in the history of Islam, at every century, every generation, they didn't follow Quran and Sunnah. All right, let me give you an example to show you their Quran and Sunnah. Those scholars who are at that level of of scholarship in fiqh, and their ability and qualifications as a legal jurist, all of them were at the level of memorizing the Quran. That was a given for all of them. Rarely would you find an expert jurist, which we call al-faqih. So al-faqih, that's the legal jurist. The real faqih in any school, right, memorized the Quran when they were children. That was like first thing before they even went into that field, they memorized Quran. The expert among them in every school had a hafiz in hadith. Which means that that one who was a hafiz in hadith, that was enrolled in one of those schools in terms of he worked on the jurisprudence, he worked on the legal rulings, he wasn't actually giving legal rulings and spreading the information. In every school, they had among them someone who was a hafiz in hadith, which means that that person memorized 100,000 hadith of the Prophet ﷺ with their chains of narration. In every school, in the school of Abu Hanifa, the school of Imam Malik, the school of Shafi, the school of Imam Ahmed, if you study the biographies of the leading scholars in each of those schools, you're going to find that in every one of those schools, at every level, they had someone, many, who had the title of Al-Hafiz, memorized 100,000 hadith. Let's just be extremely generous so we don't make claim. Let's say there was one Hafiz at every level who memorized the Quran, that worked as a faqih within the school. So in the Hanafi school, so let's take 1,200 years. So let's say one scholar who had the combination of memorizing the Quran and reached the level of Hafiz, 100,000 hadith, right? Memorized. So that's 12 in the Hanafi school, 12 in the Maliki school, 12 in the Shafi'i school, 12 in the Hanbali school, 4 times 12, 48. So that's 48 memorizers of the Quran who were also master memorizers of the Hadith. So if we're good at math and keeping score, the one who says, I'm not following a madhab, I'm following the Quran and Sunnah, is going 48-1. And he's not one of those who memorized the Quran and 100,000 hadith. And trust me, that 48 is nowhere near the number. In reality, 48 ain't even in one school over 1,200 years. It's way more than that, right? So you're talking hundreds of people who are like that, who worked on the fiqh of a school, who are engaged in checking the reports and checking the narrations and evaluating the narrators and deducing the legal rulings that are taken from that and aiding in that work. That had scholars of Arabic language, scholars of different sciences, usul al-fiqh, and they all working together in a collective effort to produce what we have today as a madhab. And this one is going to say, I could do that myself. Do y'all understand what has been crippling us in terms of the rubber meeting road in fiqh is alone? That we're actually getting person who's not even a beginner in Islamic jurisprudence from the standpoint of qualifications, challenging experts. So if that's the case, could you imagine the legal rulings that they're giving? Do y'all get the picture? It's important so we can see what doesn't work and hasn't worked, so that we can begin to do the work that we need to understand our religion properly, to start addressing our real concerns in an academic, scholarly manner. Y'all follow me? So when we talk about rubber hitting the road, that's something we really need to consider. All of us must, and I'm going to say must, refer to those madhabs, their scholars, their books, for a proper understanding of religious rules. Without it, we're doing ourselves a disservice. Without it, we are doing ourselves a disservice. Really. And the structure of every madhab is set up to take us from beginner level to legal expert. It's designed like that. The way the books are written, the levels, the sequence of learning, the secondary sciences that are needed, all of that is laid out. You don't have to unjustly try to reinvent the wheel of Islamic jurisprudence. You don't need to do that. Let alone the fact you're not qualified to do it, you don't need to even give it a try. It's already laid out. And at least be just to ourselves and learn a system well enough to know if we even need to tweak anything. You got to learn the system first before you think it needs to be tweaked. If you didn't learn the system, how can you tweak it? So this is very important. In every school, there is a sequence now of books by which you can learn the rules of the religion in a expert legal manner. I say expert in legal So you start thinking, when you don't follow it right, you are doing a crime. Right? That, like, emphasize legal. Right? These are legal religious texts. And the one who approaches them wrong is a criminal. Is a criminal that deserves to be censored at minimum, and punished by Allah at maximum. May Allah protect us from that. So this is important to understand. And here's the real kicker for us. Do you know around the world, everyone knows that, and in their scholarly circles, this is well understood. But when it comes to us, it's watered down around the world. Even in the country that this idea has gained exported acceptance, they're exporting their students with these ideas to Western countries like America and other places, but their own scholars reject this stuff. They reject the whole idea. And I'm going to give you the sign that they reject. They call them students of knowledge. They don't call them fuqaha. They don't call them jurists. Tulab al-ilm, students of knowledge, not jurists. You ever thought why? They graduate, they are sent to our country, and they're called Tulab al-ilm. Did you never say al-faqih for any of them? Have you ever heard that title for one of them? Al-faqih. No, you haven't. Absolutely you haven't. You ever thought about why? Wait a minute. So if you're not even called a jurist, a scholar, a legal scholar, then how are you making up your own legal rulings? Think about that. I mean, some things that make you watch Arsenio Hall, things that make you go, I never said al-faqih. Because when they finish with their studies, you know, that guy actually ends up on the bench somewhere in an actual legal court doing legal rulings and judgments. It's comical sometimes when you think about it. Sad, but comical. The silly games they play with our minds. Like, this doesn't make no sense. Right? You're not a jurist. So where are you getting your legal opinions from since you're not a jurist? You're not the jurist, so where are you getting your legal opinions from? Oh, I examine all the madhabs, and I picked. I'm sorry. I heard this is so funny. Oh, I don't follow one school. I follow all the schools, and I can't even say it. It's so funny. I picked the strongest opinion. You picked the strongest opinion. You actually sitting here talking about you follow all the schools. Would you stop it? It's silly. You don't even know how to follow one school, let alone all four. Like, how are you researching in all the schools? When in every school, they have levels of instruction. There is an actual systematic authoring of books for levels of people on the pursuit of understanding of Islamic jurisprudence. There are levels. So since you're reading all four madhabs and you're actually examining the evidences, that means you actually went through every school at all these levels to build such expert legal mind that is able to then evaluate all the schools and come up with the strongest of opinion. Can I wake you up? Even the expert jurists at any school never claimed that. Like, what are you talking about? Even the high expert jurists of any school never claimed that. My sir, that don't make no sense. Are you kidding me? Let me give you an example. Y'all ready? I'm gonna show you how silly that is. It sounds good when they're just talking, but that don't make no sense. It's impossible for you. It's impossible practically probably for anybody, but definitely, absolutely, 1,000,000% impossible for the one who's making that claim. Let me just give you one school, right? In the Shafi'i school, you have a beginner level, you have an intermediate level, you have an advanced level. And after the advanced level, you have a scholarly level, because advanced doesn't necessarily mean scholarly expertise. It means you covered all the requisite information to be considered well-informed. So you're advanced. It's not scholarly, that's advanced. Scholarly is another level. So let's look at 4 levels. Please write them down. 4 levels. Beginner level. And I'm going to show you how all the books work in every madhab. Beginner level, intermediate level, advanced level, scholarly level. So that person's claiming level number 4. The first level, beginner level, that type of text that one is going to study is just going to have rulings. The legal ruling, do this, this is the conditions, these are the obligatory integrals, these are the invalidators, these are the recommended matters, these are the exceptions in every case. Purification, prayer, zakat, fasting, hajj, transactions, dealings, contracts, marriage, divorce, inheritance, crimes and punishments, all the way to the end of fiqh. That's all it's going to talk about. No details, just the rules. Here's the rules. Not how those rules were arrived at, just the rule. This is the rule. So in other words, at the beginning level, you need to have a comprehensive grasp of what we're talking about. Before we get into any details, here's the rules. This is what you must do. Without any details, this is what you need to do. All right? That's level 1. So after level 1, you're actually have a map of Islamic jurisprudence at the first level. That's all you have. And you can actually go do your obligations in any case, in a general sense, without details. That's level 1. That's a beginner. Now, let's be honest with us, because we know us. This is the Black Imams Roundtable. We don't lie to each other. How many of us have actually acquired the beginning level in fiqh? We know from the beginning of Islamic jurisprudence to the end the rules in one school I'm talking about. How many of us has really done that? Let's be honest. Come on, we talking here. Even if you've done it by yourself, without a teacher, because really all that has to be done with a jurist, with a teacher, with someone who's learned. How many of us have actually done that? By ourselves. I'm not talking about with a scholar. I ain't talking about somebody taught you. I'm talking about you just read it yourself from A to Z. Right? Let's be honest with ourselves. Most of us have not. Because and the sign of it is you see all the raggedy stuff we be doing. Right? Like in marriage, in business, like obviously you didn't learn the rules of the religion, not the stuff we be doing. That's obvious. Right? That's not a critical, that's we just being honest. So that's level one. The one usually saying that stuff, I follow Quran and Sunnah, has not done level one, the beginner level, in no school. Do you hear what I said? The one who's saying that has not done the beginning level in one school. That's the beginner level. Let's move to the intermediate level. The intermediate level is going to talk about the rules that were learned at the first level and indicate evidences for those legal rulings. Some evidences, not all of them, but some indication of evidences for the first level. So the first level, you learn all the rules. The second level, the book, is going to introduce you to the textual evidences for those legal rulings that you learned at the first level. And then add more rules because now you have some background, and go and add more rules in addition to some evidences that were given to you at the first level. That's the second level. That's the intermediate level. There's an expansion of the rules, more details that were not given at the first level, and adding to that some evidences, legal evidences, that support those legal rulings. You follow my point? Not all the evidences, just an indication, because it's training you, right? You go from one step to another. That is books that's written on that level. So you got many books that are written on the first level. Then you got books in every school that are written on the second level. The third level, advanced. That third level is going to introduce you to the legal rulings, more added, more evidences, and also the differences, scholarly differences of opinion within the school. Inside the school itself, by the scholars, the legal experts within the school, at that third level, you're going to learn where they had scholarly disagreements. In addition to that, that's a third level. In the school, that's the advanced level. You follow? What many people don't realize who haven't studied, in every school, you have scholarly disagreement in certain legal cases. That's learned at that third level. Because now you're actually in the school, you understand the legal rulings, you have some familiarity with how legal rulings are derived, and now you're going to be exposed to why and how scholars differ in applying those legal rulings, and the differences of scholarly research with evidence to actually come up with legal opinions. That's at the third level. That's advanced. The fourth level, scholarly, you're going to learn that same process in addition to the disagreements and consensus in other schools. So you're going to have your own school, and then you'll be learning the differences and the agreements in other schools to your school and the why and their evidences. That's a scholarly level. There's 4 levels in general I'm giving you. Now, when we look at that, you see how much we got to go? Us. I'm talking about us, where we at. If we be honest, in any school, we're not even completed level 1 yet. And we're claiming the scholarly level in practice. And we wonder why we got mass confusion. And the woman wonder why her rights are all over the place and she didn't have no answers, because they gave you a new religion. It doesn't work. It has no structure. That's in every school. You follow? That's in every school. Now, at every level, in every, let's say every generation, there were books that were authored to actually clarify that and expound on that. So when we talk about the first level, you have many books at different times in Islamic history from every school that were written. So you have this, because we're in the 15th century, we're going back to the 3rd century Hijra. So there's been books being offered all those years, and they have different cases and different circumstances, and all that actually would work in us dealing with our situation now. If we knew it exists and had access to it, it would look totally different. You follow my point? This is a very important lesson. And when we were talking about the Roundtable in this series, we were mentioning these issues because we're actually trying to figure what we have to do. And then educate us enough so we begin the process. You follow what I mean? I'm going to pause there. We'll come back. I want to give you a chance for some questions. And we'll come back next week with my fellow imams and continue. Because I'm going to actually show you that system in every school and explain it and walk you through it, right? Because I would love, what I would love for us, that at this level in our communities, at this generation, we stop the hit and miss stuff, right? We actually know what we're doing at this level. You know, one of the most frustrating things with me, and I talk to our elders, they tell me all about the stories, and we used to do this, and it's great. It's nice, and may Allah reward the efforts. But as soon as I ask them about curriculum-based education, what did y'all learn in this? What did y'all learn in this? They have nothing to say. What did y'all learn in fiqh? What did y'all learn in aqidah? What did y'all learn in tasawwuf? What did y'all learn in hadith? What did y'all learn in usul al-hadith? What did y'all learn in usul al-fiqh? What did y'all learn in seerah? What did y'all learn in logic? What did y'all learn in no curriculum? As if all of these sciences are not important. Like, what did y'all learn in tafsir? What did y'all learn in usul al-tafsir? Right? What did you learn? What's the curriculum? Nothing. Can we go on like that and expect to rise up as a people when the whole world is being exposed to this rich Islamic legacy? Right? Do y'all follow me? Do you follow me? Now, it takes some discipline for you to drop your ego and admit that you don't know. I know that sometimes is rough for us, but we have to, because it ain't about us. Remember I said 100 years after we're gone, what it looks like? It's what we do right now. So the conversation is the beginning. So we got to have this uncomfortable conversation so that we can motivate ourselves to do better. Yeah, I know it's uncomfortable. I got it. But it was more uncomfortable that we leave generations of our people who want to do the right thing in a state of confusion because we didn't do our job. I think that's a greater injustice. And that's way more uncomfortable. If we really love our offspring, we wouldn't do that to them. We would get it right. Or at least set a precedent so it's right. So many of us, and I know many of you here, especially in the African American community, we go to the suburbs, we go and we see events, and the first thing as we're looking at others with this rich tradition, we always feel, what about us? It is natural, right? We go to a retreat, we go to some scholar came in and they read, and we see the makeup of the audience, and we realize, like, Dad, why we don't have this? How many of you have thought that? Be honest. Don't tell me where. Just tell me how many of you have had those thoughts in your mind at some time during your gathering where you're taking pictures and putting up videos and, smiling with the sheikh. And then you say to yourself, what about us? Be honest. And if you haven't, I really wonder what happened to your sense of nation pride. Like, you don't feel it? Like you go over everybody's house and they got chandeliers and nice and you live in a shack. Don't you say, oh, man, I gotta get myself together. Like, Allahu Akbar. Right? I know you go and I know you enjoy, but what about your family and kids and neighborhood where you came, the people don't they deserve the same thing or better? Well, no one's going to do that if you don't. You follow what I'm saying? No one's going to do that if you don't do it. So in order to do it, you have to learn how to do it. And then you have to struggle with a deliberate attempt to keep your people ignorant. Because as you learn, you're going to discover this is not by accident. This is by design. This is real stuff. And actually, this is one of the greatest motivators for myself because I've been watching that for 30 years or more. And I said to myself some time ago, enough of this. Right? Enough of this stuff. I'm done with it. Not done where I don't cooperate with others, but I'm done helping others build while we decay. No. Listen to me. I'm not saying that I don't support others growing. I wish you grow and become the best you can be, but not at the expense of the decay of my own family and community and people. No. So I must take a portion of that energy and give it back to those who are just like me, but don't have the access I have. You follow? Y'all follow my point? And there's nothing wrong with that. It's not racism. That's not a bad thing. That's actually a compliance to the Quran, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu ku anfusakum wa ahlikum. Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu ku anfusakum wa ahlikum. O you who believe, save yourselves and your families. That's an obligation from the Quran. And when the scholars explained that, they said, teach your family the rules of the religion. Teach them how to pray and how to fast, how to marry, how to divorce, how to buy, how to sell. Teach them fiqh. That's how you save. That's the saving for yourself and your family. Well, why we don't deserve that? Oh, Hussein, I would love to have this conversation with you and see how it works out if we talked about it. I want to share this one. Oh, I would love to have this conversation. You want to have this conversation, Hussein? I welcome you on. This is the Black Imams Roundtable. We love an interesting discussion. I would love to talk to you about it. Let's do it? Okay. We got to be good manners, though. I would love this. Here, I'm going to give you the link. I want you to join. I want to hear you out. All right. All right, I'll give you 3 minutes to set up. Put on your costume, put on your beard, put on your turban. I'm joking. Right? I would like to have that discussion. That's a good discussion because that's level 4. So that means this is a scholarly level. Let's see if that's plausible. Let's have the discussion. But here, why I say it's a good discussion, because he said, on one hand, I agree. On another hand, I disagree. Today, we can search up legal rulings of all 4 schools, their evidences, and their scholarly opinions, and it's evident some opinions are stronger than others. MashaAllah. Let's see how that practically works. Or is it just something we're saying, or that is actually practical? I would like to have that discussion. Not a debate, it's a discussion. We're talking. So don't feel it as a debate. We're just talking. And we're evaluating what we're talking about. So y'all know this is getting ready to turn into another 2-hour discussion. This is going to be the longest round table ever. But let me take, as I'm going to hold that statement of Brother Hussein till he comes. I welcome him for the discussion. And I want to answer some of the other questions. Where did he go? Hold up. Where Brother Hussein's question? That was nice. I will put you over there, Brother Hussein. All right, let me answer some of these questions. This is off the topic, but I'll touch it briefly. Salam, Imam. I have a question. What is the difference between Athari, Wahhabi, and Salafi? According to my understanding, sometimes these terms can be used for differences, and sometimes they can be synonymous. So if you say Athari, meaning Hanbali, and you're talking about Aqidah here, that's what you're talking about. It has the meaning of sticking to transmitted narrations and full stop without a modality or further explanations. So it's reciting the text, denying any modality, no further explanation, and declaring a law transcendent from resemblance to created things. That's Athari, meaning Hanbali in its purest sense. Wahhabi and Salafi, in regard to that, it is reciting those narrations, negating the knowledge of a how from themselves while reserving that for Allah. So it's affirming a how, which is against the Hanbali authority origin, and declaring a law different from the creation. That is Brother Hussein, are you there?
Assalamu alaikum, Amin.
Yeah, you don't have to use your camera if you don't want. It's not necessary. If you choose to, you can, but you don't have to.
Yeah.
1 second. So the Wahhabi Salafi, which would be synonymous in this sense, that would be the difference. But the Wahhabi Salafi will also say Athari with the meaning of their meaning, not the meaning of Al-Hanabila. So this is two different things, and it needs to be explained out. But that's the basic difference. So if you're talking about just from a basic book level, and there is a disagreement between those two as to what really represents the belief of Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal. But as you know, we don't agree with the Wahhabi Salafi approach to creed. So that's a discussion that can be held. But I mean, from our sense, that's the answer to your question. And if we wanted to expand it out, that's easy from the books and from the scholars, from their own statements. That's not something that we actually are saying. It's in their books, it's in their statements, it's all on their speeches, right? So if you listen to them, and a lot of disadvantage for us is that we don't have a lot of access. But when you get access to Arabic literature, in the Arabic language, all this stuff becomes a lot clearer in terms of it's spoken more abundantly and more outwardly. It's not curtailed. So you can actually see what's being said. And Allah knows best. Assalamu alaikum, Brother Hussein.
Wa alaikum assalam, Imam.
All right. So I'm gonna put your statement up. You had a question too. You were talking about Gambia. Imam, no, that's not you. That's somebody else. Okay, I'm sorry. You're Hussein. So why don't you read your question and speak that out so we can make sure we understand it? Because sometimes you can read something and misunderstand.
Yeah, for sure. Look, I'll just want to play a bit of a devil's advocate here.
Don't play the devil.
Just learning.
Listen, play advocate. Don't play the devil. Don't be the
fair enough.
Advocate. Just be an advocate.
Okay.
I don't want you to play the devil right now. Joking.
So my question was: on one hand, I agree. On another hand, I disagree. Okay. Today, we can search up legal rulings of all four schools, their evidences, their scholarly opinions, and it is evident some opinions are stronger than others. So I guess when I wrote that, I was thinking of, for example, a specific example. Mm-hmm. Some schools would say the wudu breaks when you touch a female. For example, someone's exchanging change with you in the grocery store, the hands touch, your wudu breaks. Mm-hmm. Other schools will say that, you know what I mean? That it doesn't break the wudu.
Okay.
So if one was practiced, and I believe it's in the Shafi'i fiqh where it would break the wudu, correct me if I'm wrong.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah. So I was just going to say, if someone...
That's in the Shafi'i school, it will break your wudu when?
That any touch occurs.
Is that true? No, that's not true.
Is it true or not true?
No, it's not true.
Sorry, I thought that was the case.
Shafi'i school.
Want me to explain it?
Yes, you said it.
So obviously I'm wrong now. I can't explain it.
Listen, look at the title. Fiqh, where the rubber meets the road. So you said it's true what you're saying. In one school, it would break wudu, touching the woman, and another. But you didn't give the rules. So that's not absolute. Right? Touching a woman in and of itself may not necessarily in the Shafi'i school break wudu, right? When does it break wudu? That's the question.
Look, mate, I've got no idea.
So my point, you can say I don't know. It's fine. We all said we don't know. So that's level. What level in our discussion?
1.
So for you to do that, you just admitted you ain't even do level 1.
Correct.
So for you, that's not practical, right?
I'm not sure I understand what you mean by that.
Okay. You made the statement.
Yes.
You said today we can search up legal rulings of all 4 schools and their evidence and their scholarly opinions, and it's evident some opinions are stronger than others, right? From what we discussed, what level would that be?
To make that distinction, that would be higher than level 1.
What level? We mentioned how many levels?
I want to say it was 4.
Right, was it 4? What were the 4 levels? We're reviewing too. We're brothers. So listen,
yeah, for sure.
I want you to feel comfortable. I'm your brother. I love you. And I want us to make sure we understand what we're talking about. And if I'm wrong, I will correct. I'm wrong. I will say I'm mistaken, but I'm giving you a general. And if we all understand what we're saying, is a better conversation. So what were the 4 levels?
I can't tell you. I didn't write them down.
Okay. Next time, write them down. I'm not speaking for my health. Right. Right. So level 1, the beginner level. Level 2, the intermediate level. Level 3, the advanced level. Level 4, the scholarly level. When we explained level 4, we were talking about what you just mentioned. And hence, we said level 4 only is acquired after going through level 1, 2, and 3, right?
Correct.
And you just proved that to be true, right?
Yes.
Because at level 4, where you're talking and you messed up the ruling at level 1, your whole discussion just fell apart.
Yeah. And look, I mean, I'm not.
No, you follow what I'm saying?
I follow what you're saying, yeah.
I'm talking about the practicality of what we're saying. And I said, we're not like that. You just proved it.
Yes.
Let's stop. Let's move on. So you're right. I'm going to give you the condition. Touching the skin to skin of the marriageable woman would break wudu. So if she's not marriageable to me, she's from my unlawful relatives that I cannot marry, and I touch her skin to skin, that doesn't break my wudu. If I touch her with a barrier between, it's still touching, but it's a barrier. I didn't say it was lawful. I said it doesn't break wudu. You see my point? So there are conditions. At level 1, you would have learned all that.
Yeah. Yes, no, you're 100% correct. I guess, I wasn't thinking of explaining it in that way. Yes, you're right. I am aware of those conditions. Look, I'm just thinking from a layman's perspective. You know what I mean?
I know. We're just helping each other to really think like laymen. I'm a layman. So therefore, I know I cannot do multiplication if I don't know addition and subtraction, right?
Yes.
Is it possible to do multiplication without addition and subtraction?
I mean, no.
Okay. So what we're doing, you're talking about algebra without addition, subtraction, division, or multiplication. Is that possible?
Is that really a fair analogy? I mean, I would.
Yes, you just proved it.
Very fair.
It's fair because we said you got to do level 1, and we skipped from level 1 to level 4, and because of not understanding level 1, how are we ever going to do level 4?
Yeah, look,
because you
that's
said
true.
We can search up the legal rulings in all 4 schools. We're talking about one school we're falling short in. You want to move to the Hanafi school and see the rules for that? And then we're talking about the evidences for it. If you don't know the rule, I know you don't know the evidence. If you don't know the rule, it's impossible that you know the evidence. And then the evidences, you got to know the scholarly opinions. That's level 3. And that's within the school and outside of a school. For instance, is that a consensus inside one school for all those opinions? Are there scholars that differed about that within the school? You see my point?
I see your point, Amin.
You're asking for a lot.
Yep, but So I guess when I'm thinking of it, I would say most of us, day-to-day lives, we remember conclusions of things. You know, we're not going about our lives and, you know, encounter a situation and thinking exactly A, B, C, D step. We're thinking, can I do this or can't I do this? Will this break my wudu? Will this not break my wudu? So you know what I'm getting at?
Yes.
So,
you know what I'm getting at when I say that? I agree with you. That's why we need to be at level 1.
Yes.
At level 1, in any school, once we know that, now we have the basic rules. The next level, we can learn the evidences within one school. The next level, we can learn the scholarly opinions related to those evidence. And then the next level, which is a scholarly level, we're going to know the difference in which one is stronger and why, and in schools and comparing. You see there's levels?
Yep.
We have a saying in our culture, right? You know what that saying is? You're from the UK? I hear it in your voice.
Australia.
Australia, okay. Did you come before?
Yeah, I came before.
You're the same Hussein was on before?
Correct.
Okay, man, I love you. Thanks for sticking in, right? Here's my point. Here's the point what I'm making. We say in our culture, there's levels to this. You can put that. That's an African-American saying. I give you ijaza in it. There's levels to this. Repeat that. There's levels to this.
There's levels to this.
Right. And that's reality. There's levels. We ain't all at the same level. Right? So as levels, let's go through those levels. Right? And that will make it practical. And one day, we hope that we are actually at that scholarly level. But we got to start where we at. You follow my point?
I follow your point. Do you follow my point?
I'm still trying to figure your point.
So my point is sort of this, okay? So suppose I'm in a Shafi'i community, I'm growing around, you know, my teacher's a Shafi'i, the local Masjid Shafi'i, the local Imam Shafi'i, and he says, look, like we just discussed, that transaction at the supermarket would break my wudu. But suppose I also know about the other opinions of the other schools. What exactly prevents me from following those other opinions? You get what I'm saying?
Yeah, I'll tell you what should prevent you from following those other opinions. Until you actually know those opinions, and whenever you want to know an opinion, you want to know 3 things, basic things, right? I'm talking about a legal ruling. 3 things you need to know before you apply any legal ruling. You need to know its preconditions, its integrals, meaning obligations of that act, and its invalidators. If you don't know all those 3 things, you can't apply that ruling. So you need to apply the ruling that you learned those. And if you don't know that in any ruling, then you need to go learn before you do anything.
Okay, but if that was necessary, nobody knows that. I mean, you know,
No, that's not true. We do know.
I know it. I know you know it, but if I'm just talking
every student who learns properly knows it.
Yes, every student who learns properly knows it.
Right. However, every student who learns properly with a teacher from a reliable text within the school must know that. So if they don't know it, that means they didn't learn properly.
Correct.
And that's the problem we're trying to overcome. We need us to learn properly. These basic questions we should know, just as we should know addition and subtraction before we do multiplication.
Yes.
We cannot skip by it and say, well, most of us don't learn it. It's wrong. We have to fix it. You follow my point?
I follow your point. And look, I guess the distinction I would make is that point makes sense if you intend on teaching and whatnot. But if you're just a businessman, you know, a student, you know what I mean, going through high school, university after that, you know, you get what I'm saying?
Yes, let me answer that for you. There's a such thing as called knowledge that is a personal obligation on every morally responsible individual. So before you get to college before you start your business, you became morally responsible. We call mukallaf. Write this word down. It's called mukallaf, right? Right? Mukallaf is a person who is morally responsible, accountable. That occurs for a male, since we're men, right? Either when you have your first emission of sexual fluid, however it occurs. And if that doesn't happen, first, when you become 15 lunar years, at that age, in our societies, you're not a businessman and you're not off to the university yet. At that age, you're obligated to learn certain things about the religion. Certain personal, in other words, before you engage in anything, you need to know the legal ruling for that. Imam al-Bukhari has a whole section titled in his book, Sahih, in the book of knowledge. He has a title called Bab al-Ilmu qabl al-Qawli wal-Amal. Knowledge must precede every statement in action. So you don't go do business without knowing the rules, right? You don't pray without knowing the rules. You don't make ablution without knowing the rules. You don't even clean yourself or going after the bathroom without knowing the rules. And that knowledge is a personal obligation because you got to go to the bathroom. You have to make ablution. You have to make a purificatory bath. You have to pray. You have to fast. You have to eat. You have to buy, sell. So you need to know the legal ruling for all that. That's the first level. You must learn that at the first level. And those books at the first level is going to teach you all those things in any school. Do you follow my point?
I follow your point.
So we can't make an excuse for not learning, right? For not learning.
So I guess, when you're saying learning,
I'm not talking about you, but I'm talking about us collectively. We can't make the excuse because we're not learning that we don't need to learn. No, we need to learn, right? And that is something we must do collectively. It needs to be a spirit in our communities where learning is essential, right? In America, if you don't educate your children, they'll put you in prison. You know that, right?
Yes.
You can't just say my children are not going to learn. You're going to go to jail because they consider that a crime. So that's just worldly stuff. What about the religion? You think it's permissible not to learn the religion?
Of course not. Of course.
So even if it's become commonplace, we must collectively work together to fix that. Do you understand my point? That's the whole.
I understand your point. I guess for example, go back to how you asked me what's the legal ruling in the Shafi'i fiqh, okay? And then I said I didn't know. You know what I mean? But you give me 10 minutes with a PC, I can pull up the books, okay?
So what if your PC don't work? What if your battery go out?
Hey, I've got an iPhone.
What you gonna do?
I get what you're saying.
What if Google crash? What you gonna do?
Hey, if Google crashes, the whole world is crashing, mate.
No, the world existed before Google.
Okay, so look.
When I was studying, when I started studying, there was no such thing as Google.
Yeah, and that's why I agree with what you're saying.
And we did pretty good, didn't we? Actually, we had no Google, and we learned the religion, and now the people got Google and don't know the religion. So I don't know. Is Google so great?
Yeah, but look, I guess my point still stands. I know we're joking about it, but you give me 10 minutes, I can pull up all 4 opinions in super detail, maybe details even you've forgotten. Okay, so
I challenge you on that. And I guarantee you, if I'd give you a half an hour. Matter of fact, I give you a whole day, and I guarantee you won't be able to do it with Google. I'll challenge you on that. That could be a private. It don't gotta be public. You can reach me. You're on, right?
Yeah.
Listen, I'll give you a week to do that. We'll just pick one case. I'll give you a week to do that. And I guarantee you wouldn't be able to do it.
Well,
not because you're a bad person, because you don't have the necessary tools and background information to even do a proper search. Do you see my point? Because guess what Google can do for you?
What's that?
Google cannot know what you don't know. Therefore, when you put your search in, it's going to be general. It doesn't take into consideration your lack of knowledge.
Okay.
Do you get my point?
I get your point.
Now, I don't know if AI has got that advanced. I doubt
it has. No, it hasn't. I've used it, and it's super specific.
Yeah, that's for someone who ain't test you with your AI report, your AI pamphlet. Let's challenge your AI pamphlet and see how it works. No, seriously. I'm saying that as you know, with brotherly love, we're joking, but I'm serious that stuff don't work. Because you know what search engines do? It takes you to a conclusion. It doesn't lay out everything you needed to do to reach that conclusion. So when you just have a conclusion, it's like you have a video. And when you have a video of an incident, but you don't know what happened before that incident occurred, that video will be out of context sometimes, right?
Yeah.
That's your search. It's going to give you the video, but it doesn't give you the context around it. Unless you know how to do that, which you obviously, or most people who are searching don't know how to do that. Because let me ask you a question. Who's giving you that judgment on the other end of that Google search? Who's giving you the judgment?
It's taken from the books, the scholarly books will give you a reference.
What scholarly books? So let's stop. You Shafi'i?
Me?
Yes.
Look,
that's not a trick question. It's a yes or no answer.
When people ask me this question, honestly, I don't know how to answer it.
Right, just say I don't know. I don't know what I am.
I don't know. That's fine.
If you were Shafi'i, when that book was searched, when that search comes and it says this is the Shafi'i position, as a Shafi'i, you're going to know the book, the reliability of the book that he's talking about. If there is other opinions, if there is conditioned by something, that search ain't going to do that. But as a person who studies the school itself, you would know that, right? No, it's important.
I respectfully disagree with.
All right, why do you disagree?
Look, I have, because I've done these scenarios, okay, with other people, and people that have learned, scholars, sheikhs, and it does pull up exactly what they're looking for.
You just said something. What did you say they were?
Scholars, sheikh, learned people.
So is a scholar, sheikh, learned person like a common person like me and you?
No, it's people that have studied.
So what they see is different from what we see, right?
I mean, I don't think I understand.
Yeah, because he's a scholar, a sheikh, or a learned person. That means he read level 1, probably level 2, and at least level 3. So when he sees this thing, he's looking different from his sight, whereas me and you, we're looking at another level because we ain't finished level 1, right?
Okay, yeah. I guess, what I'm trying...
Remember I said there's levels to this? So yes. Because he can see something, that doesn't mean I can see it. Do you see my point? So I got to say, at his level, that's good for him. But for me, that don't work.
I feel like we've sort of gone a little bit off track with what I was originally trying to hint at. And it's that, it's just coming off a little bit gatekeeping. Okay.
Isn't gatekeeping necessary?
To a certain point, I would say yes.
Okay. Because if we don't gatekeep, I think we're going to get our houses raided. And they're going to take all our property.
I agree. Like, in general, I agree.
Right.
But what I'm... So even if... Because, you speak to most people, right? If you were to go to the Masjid right now, people taking wudu, you would just pull them up and say, hey, what madhab you are? They give a name. And you say, okay, give me the legal rulings for why taking wudu. they're not going to be able to completely and be able to list exactly why they're doing wudu in the manner that they're doing wudu. I don't see that.
You know what? If we change that culture, they would be able to do that.
But has there ever been a time in history where everyone was able to literally do that? I don't think so.
It's never been in a history where everyone was doing the right thing. That don't mean we stop trying to make people do the right thing.
Correct. I agree.
All right, so even if that's not the norm, and that's not always, but we still have the obligation to make us do the right thing. You know why those books are those? You know, all of those beginner books. You know why they were offered in such summarized ways, so they could be memorized.
Yeah.
So we need to have it where two ways. You memorize one way, and if you don't memorize, it's read so much that it becomes as if you memorized it.
Well,
right? So we need to make those sessions available, just like in the Masjid where there's no teaching. We need to change it to there is teaching, and then we avoid that problem. You know, I'm gonna give you a story. You ready? And I'm just enjoying you because we got to get ready to go. But I'm enjoying the engagement. I like to engage. I like to talk. Good people, right? That's how we learn too. Some people learn like this, right? Did you benefit anything from this conversation?
Yes, of course. In the presence of Imam Amin, I'm always benefiting.
Oh man, I gotta take you out for coffee. You my kind of guy. No, listen. You know what they say? You heard of the city of Tarim?
Yes.
They said whoever doesn't have a teacher in that city, they said the streets are his teacher. You know what they mean by that? What they mean by that is that in that city, these sessions are so much like regular that even the cab driver or the one who's working cleaning the streets or just the common person, from going to the mosque all the time, they become knowledgeable of the rules because that goes on so much. There's after Fajr, there's a class. After Dhuhr, somewhere there's a class. After Asr, after Maghrib, after Isha, in the different masjids, in the schools, the cab drivers driving people's talking about the rules. After years of doing that, that cab driver begins to become acquainted with the rules of the religion because of the environment. We have to develop environments that produce that. I know we don't have them. That's why we're talking, so we can get them. And then you will find that it's normal. Like, for instance, in our masjid, it's normal for the people in our masjid to know the correct belief about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala from what is not correct. Why do you think it's like that? Some of them don't even come to class, but they hear it at Jumu'ah. They hear it every time we open our mouths. They hear it, till it becomes a part of them.
Yeah.
Now, and that's over time, though. That's not going to happen overnight. But we need that process to exist. But then also we need an intentional process of actually changing the environment. You follow what I mean?
No, I follow what you mean.
That's why I said all of us have a responsibility. So you have a responsibility right now. You got all those Shafi'i sheikhs in your country, and you need to go to one of them, say, please, can you get me a first level book? I'm going to come read this book with you, and I'm going to go back and teach my family and my friends in my neighborhood. And then I'm going to learn Shafi'i fiqh. And then when you finish that, for you, that may suffice. For everyone, that may suffice. You say, you know what? I want to go to the next level so we can learn some evidence. And you're going to say, please, Sheikh, give me the book to the next level. And you're going to go do that. Because you said Shafi'i. If it was Hanafi or Malik, it doesn't matter. If we all do that at our level, what would it look like 20 years from now? And we made that a habit. And you train your children like that, your friends like that. Everyone is trained like that. What would it look like in 20 years?
It sounds like it's going to look like Tarim.
Right. Would the conversation me and you have be the same after 20 years and we were doing that?
I hope not.
That's the point I'm making.
Yeah.
That's the sole point, nothing else. But if we continue to do what we're doing, playing on Google, playing on our computers, what it's going to look like in 20 years?
Yeah, I mean, more of the same.
Right. So since we don't want more of the same, we got to do something different. As they say, sometimes the one who does the same thing, hoping to get different result, that's insanity. So we got to do something different, right? And fine, just know our levels and work at each level, right? All of us got to do that. And then we have to take some sense of responsibility and accountability for our abilities. Because if I'm able to do more, I shouldn't do less when we're in this crisis. I need to push myself, right?
Yep. Nah. Look. I mean, I don't want to just waffle on. I think.
All right, we got it. So did we clear your question though, in a way?
I mean,
in
a way, yes. But I feel like we sort of missed the point of it as well. You know.
I don't want to miss your
in a way, yes.
What did I miss? Because I don't want to miss your point.
I mean, I guess my point was, as a person living in a Western country, if I find the ruling of the madhab that I am following to be of an inconvenience, for example, such as the touching of the skin, it breaks the wudu, and I know of the existence and the evidences in another madhab, okay, and it's a valid opinion, and following it isn't going against Islam, isn't going against general principles, isn't going against legal rulings. As an individual, I'm going to follow that opinion.
That's true.
Okay? And I'm not going to... And there's nothing wrong with that. And
but I don't make sure you learn that ruling correctly. That's all we're talking about.
But my conclusion is a correct conclusion.
Yes, it's correct. But that's not what you said. In that case, you're not weighing no opinions. Actually, you're following a valid legal opinion by a valid legal jurist. That's permissible for you. Nothing wrong with it.
But in a sense, I did weigh it. You get what I'm saying?
No, you said it's hard for me. You didn't weigh anything. You just said this is hard. That's true. And this is easier for me. And it's a legitimate opinion by a qualified scholar. That's not weighing anything. That's just saying, this is my situation. This is legally valid with legal sources. I don't even know which one is necessarily weighty. I just know they're both legally valid from what we know. And it's valid to follow either one. And because of my condition, I follow that one. That is called a dispensation. And it is valid. That's a whole nother discussion. That's not what you were saying. Maybe that's what you was trying to say. So in every madhab, in between the madhabs, you got strict rulings and legal dispensations. And whenever there is a difficulty following the strict opinion, the legal dispensation in relation to you is the strict opinion. Do you got that? Did you follow that word?
I'm going to have to watch that 5 times, but I think I got it.
Just repeat it again because we're not just me and you talking. Everyone's benefiting. Whenever you have a strict opinion that you're not able to do, and you have a valid legal dispensation in relation to you, that legal dispensation is the strict ruling.
I guess when you say unable to do, this is just personal preference. It's not, I don't know what an inability means when you say
you said it's difficult for you. I don't know why.
Well, I just don't want to do it. What about that? You know what I mean?
Then don't make your religion about your desires.
Okay, but it's
dangerous. No scholar agrees with that.
Yeah.
Because what you end up doing is making your religion a game. So if there is no need, there's not a need for following a less rigorous opinion, then you don't just take that just because of your desires. No scholar would say avoid the stricter opinion, not necessarily the strongest in evidence. The stricter opinion is always preferred over a dispensation. But dispensations are available when needed. So don't make your religion based on your desires. Right? Because in that case, what you'll end up doing is not following nothing but your desires. And no one agrees with that. Not one scholar.
I mean, I wouldn't say I'm following my desires in that case. I don't see it like that.
I know no one who follows their desires says that.
but it's, how can it, I don't understand how you can say it's following my desires when it's a valid opinion with evidences.
But you can do another thing. So what's religiously more precautionary? Does that make sense?
Yes, that makes sense.
Okay. What is religiously more precautious? For you to avoid something that scholars say would break your wudu, or to do something scholars say would break your wudu?
You mean to do something that scholars say would not break my wudu?
No, would break your wudu. What's more safe? To follow scholars who said, don't do it because it will break your wudu, or do it and there's a difference that it will break your wudu. So if don't do it, you won't break your wudu, right? Then you avoid it because it's safety. Even though some say you can do it, it won't. It's agreement that some scholars said it will break your wudu if you do it. Don't do it if it's no necessary, if it's not a necessity. Why would you do something for no necessity that there's a difference in its lawfulness? Why would you do that?
I mean, I don't know how you view it as something that's safe or not. Like it doesn't. I'm not sure that's a valid question.
Can I give you a more simple? It's a valid question because it's a legal question, and in every school, you're encouraged to follow the stricter opinion when able, right? That's an agreement. No one's arguing about that. Here's my point. When do I take dispensations? When do I take the easier opinion? Right? That's the question. So I'm only going to take the dispensation for myself. I'm not talking about for others. I'm talking for myself. Right? When there's a need. Other than that, I'm going to just go where there's no disagreement. Because does the Hanafi say that, for instance, the Hanafi said if you touch the woman, as we mentioned, it doesn't break wudu? Do they say that if you decide not to touch the women, you're wrong? Do they say that? No.
No.
Right. So why don't you do what everyone agree with and save yourself from any possibility of, it's religiously more safe. Even if that's valid, if you didn't do it, you don't got to worry about it. It's a closed case.
Yeah, so I mean,
that's all I'm saying. Right?
I'll be curious to know if the
religious caution to follow what is more religiously precautious is valid according to every school.
Yeah, look, I don't walk around the streets with a bicycle helmet on in case I bump my head, to just be cautious.
But you definitely don't put yourself in an area where you won't bump your head, right?
I don't walk around with a dye plate on the streets, just to be cautious.
Yeah. All right, we got to go. But listen, please keep engaging us. I love it. You are now an official backup Imam Roundtable when the other guys don't come. I appreciate you for making me reach the 2-hour mark. May Allah reward you. I did my job with your help. I'm going to make dua for you. I hope we benefited. I hope what we said was of some benefit. And inshallah, always come back. Don't be shy. I'm glad to have you. Because sometimes this is, you know what I believe, Hussein? I believe a lot of us will only learn like this. Everybody's not a book person, right?
Nobody's a book person these days.
No, I'm a book person. I'm a nerd.
Okay.
I'm a straight nerd. Right? I don't appear to be, but if you come around me, I'm a nerd. That's all I do is read books. That's my pastime. I'm a complete nerd, right? And anyone who knows me will tell you that. Like, my biggest property is books. If I had to move, that would take the most time, moving books.
Yeah.
I'm saying, so we do. I don't believe in this computer stuff. I read. I'll read a whole book before I'll do a Google search. I'm not doing it. Right. My teachers would say, if they saw us Googling, what are you doing? That's not studying. Go read the book. At best, go find the source and then go check it. So you Googled, You saw it, now go read the books, check all those sources and make sure they're correct. I'm not saying everyone's going to be like that, but some of us must be like that and way better, right? And then the rest of us, we just kick it and we learn by kicking it. That's fine, right?
Yeah.
You know what kick it means?
I know what kick it means, my man.
Okay, I'm just making sure. You guys down under, I don't know. All right, I love you, Hussein, inshallah. Why don't you close us out with Al-Fatiha? Just say Al-Fatiha and recite it.
Al-Fatiha.
Fatiha. Barakallahu feekum. May Allah reward y'all. Thank y'all for being patient with me and Hussein as we just kick it down under and up above and American, and we just doing it. May Allah reward all of you for your patience. I hope something we said of benefited us and pushed us to become better students and seekers of knowledge and worshippers of Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala. And if anything I said wrong, blame it on the other two imams for not being here so I didn't have to talk so long. But may Allah forgive us for any shortcomings. I love you all. May Allah make us enter safely into paradise. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum assalam.